Translation. Articles to replace Mr. O'Meara and give Mr. Stokoe the character of surgeon to Napoleon. First, Dr. Stokoe is considered as surgeon to Napoleon and is filling the place of the French surgeon mentioned in the decree of the British government dated the 15th of August, 1815. Second, he's not to be taken away without the consent of Napoleon, at least by a simple order of the governor, and especially as long as the disease continues. Third, during the time that he fulfills the functions of physician, he is not to be subjected to any military discipline or duty, but to be considered as an Englishman holding a civil employment. Fourth, he is not to be obliged to render an account to any person of the state of Napoleon's health. He will write every 8 days, or oftener if necessary, a bulletin of Napoleon's health, of which he is to make 2 copies, one to be given to one of the officers at Longwood, and the other to the governor whenever he desires it. Fifth, no person whatsoever is to intermeddle in his medical functions, and no restrictions upon his communications with Napoleon and the French, either by writing or verbally, by day or by night, are to be imposed upon him. Sixth, he is not to be obliged to render an account of what he sees or hears at Longwood, unless anything which in his judgment might compromise his oath of allegiance to his country and his sovereign. Seventh, Dr. Stokoe engages to serve Napoleon in his profession independent of all prejudice or party spirit, and as if he were his own countryman, and not to make any bulletins or report of his complaints without giving him the original oath. In accepting these conditions, Mr. Stokoe is to preserve the integrity of all of his rights as an English citizen and officer. He demands to receive from the Admiralty the same pay as his predecessor, and not to be assimilated in anything to the French prisoners. The whole of the above to be done with the permission of his chief Rear Admiral Plampin, Longwood, 17th of January, 1819. He accepted the conditions, provided the admiral gave his consent, and was introduced to Napoleon, whom he found in the state described in the following report number 1, which he left at Longwood, and a copy of which he gave to the admiral. Report number 1, Longwood, 17th of January, 1819. On my visit to Longwood this morning, I found Napoleon in a very weak state, complaining of considerable pain in the right side and the region of the liver, with shooting pains in the shoulder. About midnight, he had been suddenly seized with violent pains in the head, succeeded by vertigo and syncope, which continued nearly a quarter of an hour. Soon after his recovery from this state, he had recourse to the warm bath, which produced violent perspiration and relieved him considerably. From the evident tendency of a determination of blood to the head, it will be highly necessary that a medical man should be near his person in order that immediate assistance may be afforded in the case of a recurrence of the above alarming symptoms, as well as for the daily treatment of chronic hepatitis, which the above symptoms indicate. John Stokoe, surgeon, HMS Conqueror. To Campertron, he was not permitted to remain at Longwood with his patient, but obliged to return to town, where he was interrogated minutely upon everything which he had seen, said, or heard at Longwood. The next day he was sent for again by Count Bertrand, and after some difficulty obtained a pass from Admiral Plampin, by whom, as he had the day before declined reporting the conversations he had with his patient, unless they had some relation to the political situation of the prisoner, he was prohibited from holding any communication or intercourse except medical with either Napoleon himself or any of his suite. On his arrival at Longwood, he found that Napoleon had passed the night without any alarming symptoms, but that he appeared to be more debilitated. He gave his opinion of the nature of his complaint as follows. It appears from the symptoms of chronic hepatitis, the first appearance of which he experienced about 16 months ago, that this is the principal cause of the present derangement in his health. And although they are described as having increased considerably of late, yet judging from the present appearances, I do not apprehend any immediate imminent danger, although it must be presumed that in a climate where the above disease is so prevalent, it will eventually shorten his life. The most alarming symptoms are those which were experienced last night, a recurrence of which may soon prove fatal, particularly if medical assistance is not at hand. John Stokoe, surgeon. Longwood, 18th of January, 1819. At 3 in the morning of the 19th, he was called in again to see Napoleon, whom he found very ill and in a state of high fever, as will be seen by perusal of his report number 3, a copy of which was given to Admiral Plampin. Report number 3. Soon after my arrival at Longwood yesterday, I was desired to attend Napoleon Bonaparte. Count Bertrand impatiently demanded the cause of my long absence. I replied that the Admiral had not received the official communication for Longwood, on which alone he could grant me a passport, until late in the afternoon. I found him in a state of fever, with considerable heat of skin and an increasing pain in the head. He had had no motion for 24 hours, and fearing a return of the attack of Saturday night, I advised his losing some blood and taking an active purgative immediately, to both of which he appeared to have very great repugnance, and said he would first try the effect of lavement. About 3 this morning, I was called upon by Count Bertrand, who desired me to accompany him to Napoleon. I found none of the symptoms abated, and the headache increased. I strongly urged the necessity of bleeding, which he submitted to, and which was attended with almost immediate relief. He took also a large dose of Cheltenham salts. On this occasion, I took an opportunity of examining more particularly the region of the liver, and am now fully persuaded of the diseased state of that viscous. I have in consequence recommended a course of mercury with other medicines in the form which may be best suited to the constitution of the patient. Signed, John Stokoe. On the other side of the report was written the form of the remedies prescribed, with directions of the manner in which they should be taken. The reader will perceive that the correctness of the opinion I had formed of Napoleon's malady is completely confirmed by the evidence of a surgeon of great experience, known respectability, and one who was in the daily habit of treating numbers afflicted with the same disease. In the meantime, Admiral Plampin had a long interview with Sir Hudson Lowe. The treatment which Mr. Stokoe received from the latter officer after this interview, it appears, was of such a nature as to oblige him candidly to state in the following manner that his visits there would no longer be permitted.